Reefs and mangroves are the first line of defense for coastal communities, protecting against storm surge. Many local surfers already know that coral reefs help diffuse incoming waves and create huge breaks. Ean Wallace looks at the latest technology used to protect the reefs.
Roughly 40% of the world's population lives within 60 miles of the coastline. Oceans rose an average of 8 inches since the start of the 20th century. So to protect property and lives against sea level rise, shallow, jagged reefs are being valued as they are much more efficient and cost-effective than building seawalls. However, two of the most jagged corals in the Caribbean, staghorn and elkhorn coral, are endangered and under threat. Caribbean reefs have bleached since the 1870s. Regional bleaching has increased significantly in the levels and extent of bleaching since the 1970s, and the Institute of Marine Affairs noticed wide-scale coral bleaching around Tobago in 1998 during the 1997 El Niño event. Accurate predictions of bleaching episodes remain elusive, however. Satellites can only remotely sense and measure sea surface temperature at the top few millimeters, which cannot accurately reflect the temperature of the underlying water column. The Coral Reef Early Warning Systems, placed at the Buku and Speyside Reefs by the Caribbean Community Climate Change Center and the Inter-American Development Bank, can measure sea temperature well below the surface besides ocean currents and water quality.
What it does, basically, it provides real-time data. The data is going to be recorded and transmitted so we can actually look at what is taking place on the reef. And we can do what you call eco-forecasting. We can tell if something is going on, if something is happening, and therefore we can make some sort of intervention.
Coral bleaching is set to worsen over the next century due in large part to climate change. This bleaching plan is in place between the IMA and the Tobago House of Assembly that they hope will make the reefs more resilient. Here off the coast of Tobago in Speyside is the cruise buoy, the Coral Reef Early Warning System that is helping scientists to prevent or possibly predict coral bleaching. The Early Warning System buoys stand 10 feet above water and are on guard against climate change in Barbados, St. Lucia and here.
So I use it for two purposes. One, domestically or locally. So I use more so the oceanographic instrumentation as well as to some degree the met data. To look at pH, look at chlorophyll content of the water. I also look more importantly at sea surface temperature, right? And I try to relate that to what's happening in terms of the corals, in terms of coral bleaching, the extent of the bleaching, the species that are most susceptible. We use the sea surface temperature data together with the met data to sort of eco-forecast the likelihood of a bleaching event happening in our waters. Right, so underneath the buoy we have several probes. We have a probe for looking at measuring chlorophyll. We have probes measuring pH, probes measuring sea surface temperature, probes also measuring turbidity of the water. Additionally, there's a third piece of instrumentation that we have underwater, and it's called an ADP device. ADP device is an acoustic Doppler device, which gives us profiles of the wave, of wave behavior. So in terms of wave height, wave period, current direction, etc. So whether you're a fisherman or whether you're a dive operator or even a general recreationalist wanting to know what the conditions are at the point, whether there's a potential algal bloom, whether the visibility is good to dive on that day. It has other applications other than the research.
Corals can also drown. When sea levels rise, deeper waters will cut the sunlight that eventually reaches the reef.
So it may not be the same coral reefs that we know today, but some resemblance of it. New species would probably come into play, and we may lose old species.
For the Sea News Environment Report off the coast of Speyside, I am Ean Wallace.
The Sea News Environmental Report is brought to you in part by Berger Paints for lasting beauty and protection.